To start, a clear space is needed. It can be as small or as large as you want. The larger the area, the more locomotion. You need 2 balls, one for each player, to knock down the barriers. Any type of ball works. A tennis ball works perfectly, though. For the barriers, you can get creative and use different sized objects such as bottles, cups, and cones. You can really use anything. Next, take the objects and disperse them through the space in no specific order. Make a starting point where the 2 players will throw the balls to knock down the barriers. The farther the distance and less straight on objects are from the starting point, the more challenging it is. 2 players will start by standing behind the starting point with 1 ball each. It is a 1v1 competition of who can knock down the most barriers in the fastest amount of time. When the round begins, both players simultaneously throw their ball, aiming for barriers. Each player must retrieve their own ball every time and return to the starting point to throw again. If a player knocks down a barrier, he or she must count their score out loud.
Only 3 more cups left!
If a barrier is knocked down while a player is trying to retrieve the ball, it does not count towards their score and the player has to pick it up before returning to the starting point. When all the barriers are knocked down, the player with the highest score wins. Different rules can be decided for each round to make the game harder. For example, only throwing the ball with your left hand or throwing the ball while standing on 1 foot. You can get creative with these rules. For example, after retrieving the ball and returning to the starting point, players have to do 10 jumping jacks before their next throw. That's it. The game is quick, fun, and easy to learn.
Now, how does our game Bonkers for Bottles test a child's locomotion skills? Now, when a player wants to retrieve their ball, they have to do it quickly because they have to go back to the starting line to throw the ball again. But they also want to make sure that they're careful not stepping over any of the other bottles that are in the way, that are still standing up. Now, to test a child's object manipulation skills, you would have to make the game a little harder. To do this, you can put varying levels of water in the bottles, make it so that the child has to draw with their non-dominant hand, or make it so that the child has to draw with an overhand draw. Doing this requires more cognitive attention from the child in their arm movement when they throw the ball.
So now it's time for the TOTT analysis of the game. The task of the game includes grasping, throwing, running, and agility. The objective of the game is to knock down as many bottles or barriers as fast as possible. The game has a ratio, timed, and proximal objective. The ratio objective is trying to knock down as many bottles or barriers as possible. The timed objective is to go faster than your opponent. The proximal objective is trying to throw the ball as close as possible to the barriers to knock them down. The tools include tennis balls or any small size ball. A cone is needed to mark the throwing location. Barriers that need to be knocked down can be bottles, cups, cones, or any sort of object. You can also get really creative with this. The game has a sports theme and is related to bowling.